Coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does on this Tuesday edition of the show. September the 3rd, October the 3rd. We'll get the date right. 2023. Why did I say September 3rd? I don't know why I wanted it to be September 3rd so badly. I have no idea. We got a lot to do over the next 60 minutes. I want September back. If you're a Yankee fan, you feel if you had another month of the season, you might have had a chance to make the playoffs. They played well in September. Speaking of the baseball postseason, we will get into that. Give our predictions, who we like. Sam went all out. I sent him a note. I said, hey, send me who you like for the postseason. He sent me his whole postseason bracket. I just wanted the opening rounds. I didn't need anything. I didn't need anything that crazy. We'll get into our contenders and pretenders segment, which we were supposed to do on yesterday's show, but ran out of time because brevity is not our forte. And then we will wrap it up with some odds and ends as we go through the show. But we start things out. Sam Yarnell with Monday Night Football, which if you're a Giants fan, man, that was tough to watch. That was really tough to watch. The Giants get blitzed at home. They really had look, here's my thing on this. And Sam, I know you'll probably disagree with me because that's what you do best. This is not a Daniel Jones problem. This is not a Daniel Jones problem. This is a problem of personnel. This is a problem of, a GM and ownership saying, oh, you know what? We made the playoffs last year. We won a game. So just by happenstance, we're going to get better year over year. We're not going to try to improve our offensive line. We're going to keep those same pieces in place and just hope that they perform at a better level than they did this year, rather than trying to get better, with the exception of adding Darren Waller. And we all know what that's added up to so far. If Daniel Jones doesn't have time to throw the football, it just doesn't matter. And you can ask him to run around and try to make plays. I mean, see, every time I looked up, I was bowling last night, so I was literally watching the game while bowling because they have the TV on in the bowling center. I'm sitting there every time they're in the backfield on top of him. He's got no shot in that game. So for me, it's a situation where the Giants have to do more to surround Daniel Jones with the talent he needs. And to me, that's the bottom line. Seattle was impressive, but you got to feel really down if you're a Giants fan right now at 1-3 coming off the trip to the playoffs and the win against the Vikings last year.
Yeah, so I don't disagree with you, Jason, although I know I'm really good at that.
You're gonna.
But I don't agree with you because about one specific thing, and I'm going to defend the Giants a little bit here, right? They saw what the Las Vegas Raiders did with a player like Darren Waller, who before Devontae Adams got out to Las Vegas was really the best receiving threat in that offense. And they looked at a team like that with a running back like Josh Jacobs and a quarterback like Derek Carr, and they said, oh my gosh, we're Darren Waller away from being in the playoffs every year, because that's what the Raiders were. They weren't good in the playoffs, but they were in the playoffs every year. In a tough division in the AFC West. The NFC East is a tough division because I think they could foresee that either the Eagles or the Cowboys were going to be at the top as long as the Cowboys didn't implode for, the next few years at least. They tried to become that Raiders team, and an offensive-minded coach like Brian Daboll could do it theoretically. On paper, I think it added up to an offense that was at least going to, not be historically bad in the first half through 4 weeks. At this point, I don't know. It's like blow it up season for me for the Giants. Like, throw Tyrod Taylor in there. What do you have to lose?
What do you throw Tyrod Taylor in there? If he can't protect the quarterback, it doesn't matter.
But it's not about that. Like, Daniel Jones was not making great decisions last night. I watched the majority of the game. I watched the end of it on the regular broadcast, but I watched the majority of the game on the Manning cast. And it was kind of unbelievable how those two guys were just astounded by some of the decisions that Daniel Jones was making. So I'll take their word for it, and I'll say, maybe it's worth a week. Especially, I haven't looked at the Giants. Well, I have it right in front of me. Let's see the Giants' schedule coming up. So they've got the Dolphins and then the Bills. Let Tyrod Taylor start for 2 weeks. You're not going anywhere this season. Let Tyrod, phantom injury for Daniel Jones. We see it in Major League Baseball all the time.
Can't do it.
Let Tyrod Taylor start for 2 weeks. Their throwaway games. Keep Saquon out. Let it be Tyrod Taylor and Matt Breida, former Bills, run this league, and it'll take them all the way to a top 5 pick.
Sam, you can't. First of all, you can't give up at 1-3. You can't sell that to a fan. You can't sell that to a fan base. You can't sell that to a fan base in New York, and you know that, having gone to school up there and sort of knowing what that landscape is like. And you can't tell a fan base, we just gave Daniel Jones $40 million a year, and now we're going to sit him in favor of Tyrod Taylor. You just can't do it. Look, in theory, I actually agree with what you're saying, because at 1-3 in that division, they're the worst team in that division right now. Through the first 4 games of the NFL season, they're the worst team in that division. The Commanders are better. Through 4 games, if you put the Giants on the same field with the Eagles right now, they're getting beat by 30. And the Commanders basically played them to a draw this past week. So if you ask me, the Giants are the worst team in the division right now, hands down. So in principle, I agree with you that barring some way to transform this offensive line, because I'm sorry, I know it sounds simplistic, but the reality is everything starts at the point of contact. And whether it's, on the defensive side of the ball, those battles in the trenches on the offensive line, and we're going to get Ross Tucker on one of these days to talk about this, because he's sort of, that's a position he played, and he's a good NFL insider. If you can't win at that point of attack, nothing else really matters, whether you have Saquon Barkley or not. If they can't open holes for him, it doesn't matter. And yes, Daniel Jones did make some bad decisions last night, but at the same time, his internal clock had to be completely readjusted because there was no time. Every time he looked, there was somebody in the backfield beating up on him. The Giants, by the way, as far as their win total right now in Vegas, according to FanDuel, the unofficial sports book of the Sports Wrap. Why? Because they don't pay us. Right now, Giants win total is, let's see here. Giants win total is 6.5. That's still pretty high. For the Giants, considering where we are right now. I don't know. I'd probably ride on the under with that. Although it's locked right now, so the odds aren't showing. But 6.5 is that seems high.
Yeah, I don't know.
Are they a 7-win team? Are they a 7? Based on what we've seen through the first 4 weeks, is that a 7-win team?
It doesn't feel like as much of a guarantee right now as, say, the Bears under 5.5 does, right? Like, the Giants, like you said, their season's not completely in the dumpster yet.
It's not.
A team like the Bears, their season is on fire, burning to ash. They've already thrown it away.
Yes.
There's nothing coming out of the Bears this season. So, I don't know if I'm comfortable on under 6.5 on a team like the Giants. It's just a little tough.
Yeah, I'd have to run through the schedule a little bit. As for Seattle, and by the way, I don't want to hear about injuries when it comes to the Giants. Every team has injuries. This is a league that is plagued with injuries. Every week there's injuries in this league. I mean, the New York Jets went out there on Sunday night without one of the best quarterbacks in the game, with Zach Wilson at quarterback, and they figured out how to play the Chiefs in a really entertaining football game. For the Giants to go out on Monday Night Football and lay that kind of egg in front of their home fans, I don't know why you'd bother showing up if you're a Giants fan for the next game. Seattle, meanwhile, I'll tell you what, man, team just keeps on chugging along. Yeah, Geno Smith, defense, Devon Witherspoon making plays. By the way, who the Broncos gave up. I mean, you get him with the pick 6, couple of sacks in the game. I mean, Seattle, I don't know how to judge them. I don't know if we're talking about the NFC. Are they the second tier of the NFC? I would say probably yes at 3-1. But then you look at their win total in Vegas, they're only at 8.5. Vegas only looks at them as a 500 team right now. So I'm perplexed as to how you could watch the first 4 games of the season. Yes, they laid an egg in the opener against the Rams, but ever since, if you've watched, they've won on the road at Detroit. They beat the Giants in Monday Night Football handedly. Who'd they beat last week? Who was that win against last week? I can't remember.
The Seahawks beat the Panthers last week.
All right, beat the Panthers last week, a game you'd expect them to win. But I mean, looking at Seattle here in the early going, and they're going to get judged against the better teams, but against the one really good team so far that they've played in Detroit, they beat them on the road, where Detroit is pretty good. So I don't know how we gauge Seattle yet, but apparently Vegas still isn't buying in if you only have them at 8.5.
I think that's probably, obviously I'm going to say this, but I think that's probably the right number. Because like you said, they're not in the first tier, because the first tier in the NFC is comprised of 2 teams, the Eagles and the 49ers. Everybody else is playing 17 games, and then a couple of guys will play a few extra ones, but really it's the Eagles and the Niners for the NFC Championship. So is Seattle the same tier as Dallas? No, they're not. They're not as talented on either side of the football. They don't have a quarterback who's as good. And I'm a Dak Prescott hater, and Geno Smith isn't as good as Dak Prescott.
I don't know about that. I don't know. Listen, I got to tell you right now. I got to tell you right now. I'm not saying he's better, but I think I'd put him on the same level. And they got a better head coach. Pete Carroll's a better head coach than Mike McCarthy.
Dak Prescott poops his pants one time, and people are saying he's as bad as Geno Smith now.
He pooped it 8 times. First of all, you're putting the negative connotation on it when you say as bad as. You could say as good as. And Dak pooped his pants more than once. He pooped his pants like 18 times last year in 12 games. I mean, come on. I mean, you got...
No. I mean the actual time that he did it when
I
he
know
was in
this.
college.
I know this. But you look at the but I'm trying to get past the 8.5 number, because to me it feels like an over number. So let's, just for the sake of argument here in the few minutes we have left in this segment, do my favorite thing to do. At the Bengals, that's a loss. It could be a win right now the way the Bengals are playing, but let's just say for the sake of argument they lose in Cincinnati on the 15th. So they're on the bye now. Wow, they're already on the bye. Wow. So Seahawks are off this week, then they get the Bengals. Let's say that's a loss. Home for the Cardinals, that's a win. That's 4. That's 4.
It's tough.
Oh, come on. You just told me. All you've done is knock the Cardinals.
No. I'm sorry. I'm ahead of the program. I'm looking at their whole schedule
all right,
here.
Hold on. All right. Stay with me. Stay with me on planet Earth. The Cardinals, that's 4 wins. Home for the Browns, I'll give them a win. That's 5. In Baltimore, we'll say that's a loss. Home for the Commanders, give them a win. That's 6. At the Rams, toss-up game, but let's say for argument's sake, it's a road game, they lose. That's 6. Home for the Niners, I think they could split against the Niners. I do. I think they could split against the Niners.
No.
I'm going to say they split against the Niners, just for the sake of my exercise.
Shanahan isn't going to run laps around Pete Carroll.
Just for the success, just for the experiment here that we're doing. All right, 6.
Freudian slip.
6, yes, 6. 6 there. So we give them a win. We give them 1 win there. Loss on the road to the Cowboys. Loss in Santa Clara against the Niners. Still at 6. Home for the Eagles, still at 6. On the road against the Titans, I'll give them 7. Home for the Steelers, I think the Steelers are garbage. That's 8. And then at the Cardinals, that's 9. I mean, I'll tell you what. I could see why Vegas has it at 8.5, though.
It's exactly what I said
Yep.
when I looked through it. I was like, yeah, because I wasn't doing it the same way you do. I don't like to look through entire schedules game by game. I like to group a few games together and say they'll win two of those three because they could pull a loss out of nowhere. They could have a clunker, and then they could play the best game of their season against the Bengals, right, and somehow beat them. That said, I got to the same result as you, right? I think this team, if things go well, they're winning 9 games. If things go poorly, they're winning 7 games.
Yeah.
So 8.5, it's the right number.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It is the right number. But I think they're going to go over. Based on what I've seen through the first 4 games, if you told me to make a bet on them right now, I'm probably going over. Based on what I've seen through the first 4 games.
I'd like plus money on
it. Is it plus money, though? It's not. Actually, it's locked right now, so we don't know. But 8.5 is the number for the Seahawks. That's where.
But you generally don't get plus money on win totals.
No, we generally don't. All right, contenders and pretenders. That's coming up. We've still got some baseball chatter to get into as well. Don't go anywhere. This Tuesday edition of The Cash In rolls along. Good to have you with us. And time for contender or pretender. We're 4 weeks into the season. I think it's as good a time as any to take stock, buy stock, sell stock, whatever you feel the need to do. As we continue with the program today. It's weird. I don't know why the audio is lagging behind the video. It's kind of interesting. So, contender, pretender, we're going to look at the top teams in the league and give you a sense of where we think they are. We're going to give you 3 contenders we like, 3 pretenders that we are not so high on. We'll start it with Sam. Sam, your contenders and pretenders. Go.
All right, Jason. So obviously at the top of my list with the contenders, and I will say with my pretenders, I didn't put them in order, but I did put my contenders in order. It's the Buffalo Bills right at the top, right? The Buffalo Bills established themselves this past week as a team that has kind of come into form. That loss that they had in week 1 was, in my opinion, the best thing that could have happened to them this season. They learned so much about themselves as a team, and that coaching staff has really evolved in 3 weeks, and they showed us that this past week when Sean McDermott and Ken Dorsey had Mike McDaniel and Vic Fangio in, quite frankly, a knot. They didn't know what they were doing. They were running laps around them. So the Buffalo Bills are my top contender. And then, of course, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. This team has really stayed in form from the team that they were last year and only gotten better with the addition of Jalen Carter. I love this defense of the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that they're going to find themselves right back where they were last year in the NFC Championship game against the San Francisco 49ers, and we'll see how that goes. I have a feeling it'll go just about the same way as it did last season. Been saying that since before we kicked off in 2023. My final contender, I put a couple of asterisks next to, and it's the Baltimore Ravens. Now, this is predicated on the injury curse of the Baltimore Ravens being lifted, or them hiring a new athletic trainer, something that I should say in the real world. There's something wrong with the Baltimore Ravens athletic training squad, because this is, quite frankly, one of the most talented teams when healthy in the NFL. We saw it week 1, right? Even last season, they didn't even make it to week 1 completely healthy. They had 2, maybe 3 by that point. At one point, they had 3 running backs with torn ACLs. I think it was all 3 of them before opening day last season. This year, same problem. Major injuries to key skill position players. If they can figure out this injury bug and get these guys healthy, I think Lamar Jackson is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, top 5 at worst. And he can carry this Baltimore Ravens team. That defense is a Harbaugh defense. It's, tried and true. I love the Baltimore Ravens as a sneaky. That's my sleeper contender. Obviously, I didn't want to go chalk fully and go Niners there as well, because everyone knows the Niners are a contender. It's just a matter of time until Brock Purdy proves himself as mid or Christian McCaffrey gets hurt. All right, my pretenders. Now this is where it gets good, folks. Number 1, the most obvious, the clear and most obvious pretender in the NFL right now, the Miami Dolphins. They're just not good. They were embarrassed this past week. A 28-point loss to a real football team. You win against the Chargers and the Broncos and the lowly New England Patriots, who are moving away from Mac Jones at this point and about to fire Bill Belichick. It doesn't mean anything. They played a real team and they lost real bad. The Miami Dolphins are pretenders. Give it 3 more weeks and their record might be 500. Next, the Los Angeles Chargers. And I put a question mark next to this one when I sent it to Jason, because I don't even know if they count as, a possibility. But if you are thinking that they may be in contention for anything this year besides, at best, a wild card Brandon Staley embarrassing himself with clock management, you got another thing coming, buddy. The Los Angeles Chargers are absolute pretenders. And my final one, I got to go chalk with this. It's the Dallas Cowboys. Losing Diggs is really going to hurt them. So I don't know if it's fair to say that they're even fully in contention right now, but it's only a matter of time until Dak Prescott regresses to the means. The interception numbers this year just don't add up. Once he starts actually throwing the ball downfield more, like he's going to have to with the defense lacking so much, he's going to throw more interceptions. It's only a matter of time. The Dallas Cowboys are my final pretender.
By the way, just a little addendum here. Terron Armstead's not going to be done for the season, it appears.
No, but he's going to miss a few weeks at least.
He is going to miss a few weeks, but this idea that he's gone for the season and therefore there's no protection for Tua Tagovailoa and it's all over, let's pump the brakes on that, because he will be back.
Can I just say that actually, him coming back, him not going on full IR right now, and them not getting a cap exemption
he might still go on
worse.
IR. He might still go on IR. I don't think they've decided.
It's not going to be season-ending IR like you're saying, right? So they won't be able to get a cap exemption for him, and they won't be able to sign an extra player for the league minimum. So in reality, it's just screwing the offensive line more because now the Dolphins can't go out and get someone else to replace him, and they just got to rely on in-house replacements. It's the end of the season for the Dolphins.
What are they getting for the cap minimum, though, too? I think that's a fair thing to ask. If we're going to start talking about, Richie, well, then they're not getting much. They're not getting
Richie.
Not getting that much.
Richie Incognito.
We're going to scrap him off the old scrap heap there. We're going to go bring him in off the old scrap heap.
As much as the next guy, believe that Richie Incognito should stay out of football, but not a good
stay out of society altogether.
Objectively, not a good human being, but that's who the Dolphins would go out and get.
Yeah. All right. That's what Sam thinks. What do I think? Oh, yeah. Contender, pretender. What do we got? So, mine are a little different than yours. A little bit. And that's always a good thing. For contender, look, I think some of the ones you mentioned are a little too obvious for contenders. Yeah, of course the Eagles are a contender. My God, they're undefeated. This is not a shock. They went to the NFC Championship game last year. The Bills? Of course they're going to be a contender. Nobody's ever denied that, despite their week 1 loss to the Jets. The Ravens, I think, is kind of interesting, though. And that's one where we actually agree. And it's hard for me to say that because I'm not a Lamar Jackson guy. But here's the reality. I don't think the offense has been particularly great over the first 4 weeks, and they're still 3-1. But what has been good? The defense. This was the defense I was expecting last season when I did pick the Ravens to do big things. And then it kind of went like that. It's the best sound effect I can come up with. So the Ravens, to me, I think they are a bona fide contender right now, especially when you see the fact they've already beaten the Bengals. Cincinnati's only got 1 win. Pittsburgh's a dumpster fire. And Cleveland is, well, Cleveland. I think Baltimore is absolutely a bona fide contender right now. Give you another one. I think the Lions have to be considered a contender. Detroit is playing fantastic all-around football right now. They can beat you through the air. They can beat you with Jared Goff in certain situations. I like them on special teams. There isn't any place where I think Detroit is truly deficient. And that's, as long as they stay healthy, it's a really dangerous team right now when you talk about the NFC. Do I think they're at the level of San Francisco or Philadelphia? No. But I think they can give either of those teams a really good run for their money. Problem is, they're going to have to play outdoors in either situation against those teams when we get to the postseason. But I've been very impressed with what I've seen out of Detroit over the first 4 games, and I feel like I've seen a lot of them. So I'll definitely put Detroit in the contender category right now. Here's my little off-the-wall one. Now, I'm not talking contender for a championship here, because I already know Sam's head's going to explode when I say this.
Oh, God.
The Houston Texans.
Oh,
they could win that. They could win that division. They could absolutely win that division. Houston has. Look. Here's the bottom line. They've got the best rookie class quarterback right now. Nobody's playing better than C.J. Stroud. Anthony Richardson, you're going to have to roll with the ups and downs. He only played a year in college. Hasn't taken a ton of snaps. C.J. Stroud's the real deal, though. He doesn't. And again. This game sometimes is a lot simpler than we make it out to be. He doesn't turn the football over. It's as simple as that. And he's put up prolific numbers here through the first 4 games. You know the defense is going to be good. I think they're averaging about 19 points allowed per game over the first 4 games. It's a fairly good number. That defense is going to keep them in games. I wonder, not for nothing, I wonder if there's any chance Watt would come out of retirement and come play for them.
Nah.
Because Watt has not closed the door on coming back to play.
Nah.
In a lot of interviews, he has not closed the door. And if another defensive piece would help them out, is that somebody you bring in? But have him, third down, bring him in as a third down guy? Just saying.
They just put his name.
I know that.
Literally last week.
I know.
And they just put his name on.
Driving him around the field.
Actually, Tom Brady almost did it. But who's ever played in a stadium that their name was on, right? Like,
it's a good question, actually. I kind of want to think about that.
I love the Texans, though. I love it. I love it. I'm falling in love with them too.
I am too.
Dell is electric. And
on Pierce, they run the ball well. Yeah.
I'm thinking I might get in on them to win the division right now.
Is that where they are right now? 4.5 to 1? Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even look at that. Now that sounds even juicier.
We're in. Texans to win the AFC South.
There we go. Sold. Pretenders. The New Orleans Saints are officially pretenders. When you are that badly beaten at home by Tampa Bay, who I think is good, and I debated putting them in my contenders category. New Orleans, we got a big-ass problem right now. You went and got Derek Carr in this offseason. That was supposed to be the missing piece. It has been less than stellar offensively. They did get Alvin Kamara back this week, and I do expect the offense to improve with Kamara back there, but not good. I mean, right now, you could argue they're as bad as Atlanta in that division. And Atlanta's got the better, I think Atlanta's got the better record. It doesn't matter. Tampa Bay's going to win that division. Speaking of Atlanta, they are pretender number 2. I don't care what their record is. I don't care what they did the first 2 games. You cannot win with the kind of quarterback play that the Atlanta Falcons are bringing to the table. Just can't. Desmond Ridder, completing 50% of his passes, basically. And yeah, he can run around. But teams are going to continue to say, we're going to dare you to beat us with Desmond Ridder. Bijan Robinson will still get his, but it's going to be tough yards. It's going to be tough sledding for them running the football. And I think ultimately this winds up being maybe a 6-win team at this point. I mean, what's Atlanta's total looking like right now? Let's see. I got it in front of me. That's crazy. Atlanta's 9.5. I would run for the under. It's a lot of juice. 184. It is, but it's heavy juice for. I don't see any scenario by which this team wins 10 football games. The Atlanta Falcons are going to win 10 football games. Now I get it. Schedules are all different, but we got Seattle at 8.5 right now. And you're going to try and sell me on Atlanta at 9.5? No way. I'd run and take the under. I'll take the juice. I'll pay it. I'll give it to you all day. I'll squeeze it myself. Atlanta under 9.5. Let me give you one more. The Steelers. Frauds. The run of seasons of finishing 500 or better ends this year. Pittsburgh's a bad football team right now. I don't care if it's Kenny Pickett. I don't care if it's Kenny O'Brien. Give me any Kenny you want. Mitch Trubisky. And look, Mike Tomlin's done an amazing job to keep this run of 500 seasons going as long as he has. And this isn't a Mike Tomlin problem. This is a personnel problem. The organization believing that Kenny Pickett is the guy, that's part of the problem. They don't know what they want to do at running back. Is it Najee Harris? Is it this kid they drafted? They don't know. And look, they don't have a ton of great receiving options either. Pat Freiermuth. And who are you throwing the football to? Whether you're Trubisky or Pickett. Defense will keep them in games, but Pittsburgh 8.5, I'd go running for the under on that too. And I know there's juice on it at minus 176, but Pittsburgh's not a 9-win football team. So those are my contenders and pretenders. We'll do it again next week on the show. I got to tell you, though, I'm not going to say who, Sam Yarnell, but I have a team pegged as a potential pretender next week that will shock you. Shock you.
If it's
not going to say who it is.
Bills, if they lose to the Jaguars in London, where the Jaguars have been for 2 weeks, and I'm
not saying who. Not saying who. I'm not going to spoil it. But it's fun that you're already guessing that it's Buffalo. You're so triggered by anything Buffalo.
No, I'm not. You're just so predictable with.
I will tell you this: it is not Buffalo.
Okay.
Because I think the Jaguars could win that game this week, and that is the kind of game that's sort of little hangover coming off the win against the Dolphins, going to have to fly to London, see the sights, all of that stuff. I could see them losing that game, not because I think Jacksonville's better, but because it's tough to travel to London. There's a reason that the league hasn't put a team in London yet.
Right.
I don't think it's.
I know who it is.
Maybe you do. Maybe you don't.
Find out next week.
We'll find out next week. That is the tease. Stick around. We got a lot more to do. Major League Baseball postseason's getting started. The most wonderful time of the year, unless you're a Yankees fan like me, in which case you're miserable. The Sports Wrap continues. Stay with us. We continue on this October 3rd, 2023. The most wonderful time of the year. The baseball postseason is here. I've adopted the Orioles as my team for this postseason. I don't know how you don't. I mean, of all the teams out there, is there a better feel-good story right now? Is there a better feel-good story right now than the Baltimore Orioles? I wonder what their number was before the season started to win the World Series. Had to be 5 digits. Had
It was
to be.
yeah, it was 18-1 for them to win the AL East because I bet a ton of Orioles props coming into this year. I was on their over win total and then I altered it up to it was at 77.5 easy. Cashed that in like late August. Then I altered it up to 80 and 85 as well. But them to win the East was like I want to say it was 16 or 18-1 coming into the year. It was like as good. It was worse than the Red Sox, I believe. And their number to win the World Series had to be probably a few 100-1.
It's crazy. Baltimore's plus 700 to win the World Series, by the way, right now. Plus 700. It's juicy. Without any further ado, let's talk about the MLB postseason. We'll just get into the opening round series rather than the entire postseason because Sam sent me a Venn diagram here of who he likes to win the whole thing. So I won't spoil it. He likes Atlanta. If you had a rooting interest, would you root for Baltimore with me? Can we root for Baltimore together?
Yeah,
can we do something together? Root for Baltimore?
Yes. Let's root for the Marlins together because I hate the Phillies. And, like, I really think the Marlins are going to beat the Phillies. Like, I've actually already put real American dollars on the Miami Marlins to win today and to win the series. I'm not sold on the Phillies team. Kyle Schwarber is a fraud, F-R-A-U-D, fraud.
Well, he's hitting like 190. I mean, come on.
I know, exactly. And Philly fans are still like, oh, he's the best leadoff hitter. Shut up. Shut up. No, he's not.
Only plus 160 though only plus 160 on the Marlins. Well, I guess that's actually they're the largest underdog in the postseason. So I
was gonna say they're one of the biggest dogs right now. And also if you do, there's a special on the F Duel Sportsbook because we have no free ads, but they are the official sportsbook of the Sports Wrap.
All right.
I'm in on this special that's plus 205. That's Marlins to win game 1 and to win the series. Easy.
That's just game 1, though. Do we have a series? Do we have a series odds? I don't see the series odds.
No, the series odds is plus 160. Today,
that is the series
Marlins
odds. Okay.
Are
yes, it is. You're
today
right.
The Marlins are plus 128 on the money line.
All right. I think by the way, I have always maintained. I don't know why this is, at least for me it has been. Betting postseason baseball games feels like a much easier task. Matchup predicated, pitching matchups, that sort of thing. I have always done very well betting the baseball postseason. Just money lines. Stay away from the run totals. And especially postseason baseball games are all close. You don't get a lot of blowout postseason baseball games. So do the smart thing and just stick to the money lines. At least that's my advice. All right, Sam, who do you like in these 4 series? Let's start with the Rangers and the Rays.
All right, I got to go back to my photo that I sent you because I don't want to second guess myself now because there is a chance, especially with this series. This series was one of the hardest for me to do. I went with the Rays. And that's purely because the Rangers struggled so much late in the season. Now, listen, the Rays, let's not get it twisted. It's not like they had a roses and daisies second half either, right? Nope. They had a historic first half and then fell off of, the Marianas Trench. It's been a tough tread for both of these teams who really were like fighting to see who could not make the postseason. But at the end of the day, I think the Rays pitching gets it done. They're so tried and true in the postseason over the last couple of years. Max Scherzer dealing with injury issues. Listen, the last time he dealt with injury issues in the postseason, we ended up with that. So there's always a chance for the Rangers. But I think it's the Rays in this series. I don't know if the Rays win today. What's the pitching matchup? Montgomery and Glasnow. I like Tyler Glasnow today, so I'd go Rays today at minus 162, and I'd go Rays in the series as well.
I go with the Rays. Although I gotta say, the outlier to me is the Rangers can bash with the best of them, but I've always been of the mentality, give me great starting pitching over great hitting any day when we get to the playoffs. We've seen it time and time again. It's a tried and true method when it comes to picking a lot of these series. Rays have been in this spot before, which sounds weird to say. Rangers haven't been here forever. They do have the edge, I think, from a managerial standpoint. We know how good of a skipper Bruce Bochy is. And I'll tell you what, right now, you can guarantee somewhere in this thing, Aroldis Chapman's going to blow up and cost them a game. You can just count on it. You can set your watch by it. Aroldis Chapman will blow up somewhere in this series and cost them a game because that's what Aroldis Chapman does. I'm with you. I like the Rays to win the series at -170 and definitely like them to win today. The Twins and the Blue Jays. Twins just flew under the radar all year. Nobody cared. Nobody paid attention to the Twins at all. -132. And look, the time is now for Toronto with this group. You know, we've seen this group, this collection of players in Toronto now long enough. It's time to take the next step. They're +108 to win the series. I actually like them. I think they do win the series. I think they're a better team. I'm kind of surprised the Twins are favored. Here's the thing, too. Out of the AL East, Sam, when we talk about the AL East, I think a lot of us forget it's the best division in baseball. I mean, anybody who's coming out of that AL East and going into the postseason, they've earned it. I get it. It's a balanced schedule now, or it's an unbalanced schedule now. Or it is a balanced schedule. Sorry, make sure I get that right. So everybody plays everybody. But yeah, I know. It's a balanced schedule. God, I made Sam choke.
That was awesome.
Thank you. It's a balanced schedule, but still having to stay on top. I mean, any sort of drop off. The Yankees had a bad month, and it basically cost them a trip to the postseason. There was no time for any sort of let up, and Toronto stuck with it all year. There they are. I think they're the better team. I'll go with the Blue Jays at +108 to win the series. How about you?
Oh, it's tough. This was a tough one for me. So I'm going to go, the gist is I'm going to go with you with the Blue Jays to win this series.
But
these are two teams that have great pitching, right? My betting play in this series is the under in every game. If there's a series total runs, which I actually think is a market in the state of New Jersey, I would go with that for this series. I think that there's going to be so much good pitching in this series. That's why I'm going to tune in to watch. But in terms of today's game, I think that the Twins may sneak out a win solely on the backs of Pablo Lopez. Kevin Gausman's really good. Kevin Gausman's not really good historically in the postseason. Pablo Lopez playing for something today. I like the Twins today, but I like the Blue Jays to win back-to-back games after today.
Interesting. Okay. I'll buy that. I don't think that's a terrible prediction. The next series takes us to Philadelphia Marlins and the Phillies. Yeah, I can get behind the Marlins. As much as I can get behind Baltimore, I can get behind the Marlins. I wonder what Don Mattingly's thinking watching the Marlins right now. Could have been me. Marlins are +160. They are the biggest underdog in this opening round, the wild card round of the MLB postseason. When's Jesus Lizard pitching? Because we love Jesus Lizard. Jesus Luzardo's been so good. Just give me whatever game he's pitching.
Today.
Give me Jesus Lizard. All day,
and
man.
It's Zach Wheeler. Like, I don't get how the Marlins are priced the way they are today. It does not make sense to me.
What's the number today? What's the number for game one?
So the game line for today is +128 for the Marlins on the money line. -152 for the Phillies.
Yeah, I would take the Marlins. Take the Marlins today. Run with it. With Jesus Lizard on the mound. By the way, the A's basically gave him away. gave him away. You wonder why the A's are the A's? They gave him away. With my heart, I take the Marlins. With my head, I take the Phillies. What do you think?
No, I'm serious. I'm riding with the Marlins here. Josh Bell has proven himself as a very clutch hitter, especially this season. Skip Schumacher's a great rookie manager. Listen, he's got that bunch fired up. I love the Marlins today. I love them in this series. How can you root against a guy like Luis Arias?
Softest hitting first baseman there is in baseball, but he hits for average. He's like you know what he is? He's kind of like well, I don't want to say this. San Diego fans will get mad. But the guy just puts the ball in play, but he's so good at putting the bat on the ball. And it's so refreshing for me as somebody who grew up watching baseball in the 80s and 90s when Tony Gwynn struck out like 27 times in a season. Giancarlo Stanton strikes out 27 times in 3 weeks. Brewers and Diamondbacks close out the wild card round. Brewers at minus 154, Diamondbacks at plus 126. What do you think, Sam?
D-backs were a great story early in this season, but they're not going to be able to hold a candle to the Brewers. Listen, I don't like the Brewers, and we know their history in the wild card game. Again, but I think the D-backs peaked too early this season. They'll be good next year. They're going to be good for a few years to come. It's not this year. I like the Brewers in this series. And I like the Brewers today, honestly. Corbin Burns, better pitcher than Brandon Pfaadt.
I agree with you. And look, the reality is the Diamondbacks are on the come. The unfortunate reality for them is they're on the come in a division that's still really good. I mean, as a matter of fact, I'll even go so far as to say the NL West could be like one of the best divisions in baseball in a couple of years if the Rockies get their act together. A lot of good talent in that National League West. I agree with you. I love the Brewers at minus 154. Never know, though. You know, some teams don't know that they're not supposed to be this good or not supposed to be there, not supposed to be in this position. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and that can come back to haunt you. Sometimes as a manager, it could come back to bite you, making mistakes, making, bad moves, bad decisions. Be curious to see how the Diamondbacks play it. I wouldn't go and throw a suitcase of cash on the Brewers, no. But I would take them to win the series. But that's one that's worth keeping an eye on. Yes,
I would just say that I would not throw a suitcase of cash on any NL Central team to do anything this postseason. But
you didn't finish. You just put ... and left it there.
Well,
okay. Was it supposed to be one period?
The better may do what they wish.
Okay.
But I will just not be partaking in throwing a suitcase of cash on a team from the NL Central.
Fair enough. We'll tie it up with odds and ends. One story in particular has got my attention. We'll get to it next. So I found one issue that I've got to fix. All right, getting set to put the wraps on this Tuesday edition of the show. One thing I want to tie it up with, and I come at this from a position as somebody who, and I've discussed this openly before, as somebody who has been a victim of sexual assault. So if there's anybody who's going to have sympathy or understanding towards sexual assault victims, it's me. That being said, the Trevor Bauer story that came out yesterday, it was kind of flying under the radar with all the different things going on, Monday Night Football, baseball postseason coming into focus, all of that. The Trevor Bauer story is a very interesting illustration of why, while we always give the benefit of the doubt to sexual assault victims, there are outliers out there. There are cases where you get people who are literally just trying to make a buck off somebody. Now, does Trevor Bauer have some culpability in that he acquiesced to what this woman was asking, whether it was sex with choking involved, and but clearly there was an intent on behalf of this alleged victim, who's now basically been proven to be a fraud, that she was going after his bucket of cash. And the case was settled. He was allowed to present his evidence after the fact. There was no gag order placed. It wasn't a settlement where, nobody can talk, that sort of thing. But Trevor Bauer basically gave the evidence that proved that the case which started this entire downfall of his career in the United States as an MLB player. I mean, this was the case that started the whole thing. Now, other subsequent victims, alleged victims, got to make sure we say that, other alleged victims came forward after the fact. But how do you take anybody seriously in this whole thing when you see the evidence that's out there that says Trevor Bauer didn't do anything to this first initial victim? And I was saying to Sam during the break, it makes you wonder, is there a team out there that's going to take a shot on Trevor Bauer? You say no. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just, first of all, there's no team that's going to take a shot on Trevor Bauer. It's way too much of a, well, I'll get into that in a second. The thing is with this person, this woman had been proven to be a con woman. And yeah, it was a horrible, horrible thing she did. That said, there are still 3 other women who this first person, be her a con woman or not, gave these 3 other women allegedly the confidence to come forward with their allegations. So at the end of the day, those allegations probably need to be revisited. I'm not completely aware of the entire court situation with the other 3 women. Trevor Bauer should not be back in Major League Baseball, just as much as, Aroldis Chapman shouldn't be in Major League Baseball right now. Marcelo Ozuna shouldn't be in Major League
Domingo
Baseball
Germán.
Right now.
Yeah.
Addison Russell, like the list goes on and on. What's going to happen with this? Nothing. No team's going to give him a tryout. No team's going to give him a contract, because if you remember, even before this falling out, we'll call it, this accusation towards Trevor Bauer, regardless of its veracity, was a linchpin, right? It gave Major League Baseball an excuse to get him out. Trevor Bauer's a guy who's never been friends of his teammates. He's never been good for the sport. He's never been good for brotherhood of the sport. He's very good at baseball. Trevor Bauer is a gifted athlete. He is a talented pitcher, and he can throw a baseball very well. That is all he is. He's not a good person. He's not someone who Major League Baseball wants to represent their brand. He doesn't surround himself with good people. Example 1, his agent is just an awful human being. Yeah, Trevor Bauer's got another thing coming for him. He can continue to pitch in Japan. I don't know how Japan. Actually, I do. I think there's something in Japanese culture that believes in like second chances and rebirth. And I'm glad that he took advantage of his rebirth over there. He's never going to touch a major league diamond again. He's too much of a PR case. Locker rooms hate him. He's literally never been liked by a locker room that he was in. That's why he bounced around so much. Why else would a Cy Young winning pitcher bounce around from, I think it was 4 teams or 5 teams in 4 years? Come on, let's be serious. Trevor Bauer's not good for baseball. The allegations against him were an excuse that were used to get him out of Major League Baseball, but it's fine. People like him shouldn't be in Major League Baseball, and especially when they do things like he allegedly has.
Again, allegedly. Got to make sure we make that clear, because, you know, at the end of the day, if one is discredited and a number of others come forward to try and get their bag as well, I'm just saying
that's a leap, though.
I get it, but it's just there's been more than a few cases. There's been more than a few cases, whether it's the Duke lacrosse, you know, there's been a number of cases where somebody loses their reputation. I've always said this. What's the price of a reputation? You can't get it back. You know, whether these things are proven to be true, proven to be false, whatever it may be. If something's proven to be false, where do you go to get your reputation back if you're some of these athletes? And now we know that there are women out there like this. I mean, I'll even go so far as to say that woman's a monster. To be thinking in such a way that I'm going to go and get his bag by making something up completely. And putting this position putting this person in a position to lose their livelihood. Again, not knowing anything about the other 3 cases and whether or not they're true. He's denied them. He's put out, you know, explanations on them and that sort of thing. I don't know. Just where does a guy go to get his reputation back? You know, and I think it, you know, as much as we talk about the punishment that there should be, and it should be the worst punishment for guys who do this sort of thing to women, there's never seems to be any punishment for the woman who falsely accuses a guy. I'm just saying. And look, I'll say it out loud, and I know a lot of people won't say it because they're afraid of, you know, how people are going to react to it. But nobody ever talks about the cases where guys are proven to be innocent of these types of accusations. And I don't know. And
I think the reason for that is because they happen so infrequently.
Yeah.
Like they happen so infrequently that
doesn't
we
mean
don't
they
need
don't
to
happen,
talk about
though.
them. Right. But it means that we don't need to talk about them because the real problem is when it actually happens, which is at an alarmingly high rate. Right. And when people actually have the confidence to come out against somebody who committed a felony against them and say, hey, this happened to me and I'm comfortable with living with the fact that it did now. Right. Like that is the most important thing. And listen, when you talk about guys getting their reputations back, even we'll stick with the professional athlete realm, right? Ben Roethlisberger did it. Like he totally did it. 100%. There's one example off the top of my head. Now, Le'Veon Bell. Oh my God, another guy on the same team that did it, right? Like there are guys who you can work to go through therapy and go through these resources that most likely the league that you're playing in will provide for you. Mm-hmm. I know Major League Baseball has one of the better packages in terms of taking care of their athletes off the field. Look at, especially, oh my God, with the Los Angeles Dodgers, what are they doing with Andrew Toles right now? He played for them in the World Series in 2017 and then had some mental...
Went off the rails,
Yeah, he has some mental illness that he's suffering with, and the Dodgers have kept him in their organization even though he was homeless living on the street after they lost the World Series. He was homeless and living like out of a dumpster, and the Dodgers kept him in their organization just so that he could get to these resources, right? We know these teams can get these players these things. It's just when they choose to show who they really are as a person and push them away and not go for those resources and immediately try to rebuild their reputation and instead fight back on it and say, you know, this woman is attacking me for something that never happened, blah. He didn't go about it the right way. Even if it didn't happen, he lost his reputation himself at talking about this Trevor Bauer instance specifically now, rather than guys who didn't, like a Ben Roethlisberger, who immediately was in therapy, right? Immediately was out in the public rallying against domestic abuse and things like that. Mm-hmm. We've seen guys do it the right way. Trevor Bauer didn't do it the right way, and that makes me believe that the allegations are true. That's just my personal belief, though. Yeah.
We'll see what happens. See if any teams out there take a flyer on them. I tend to agree with you, by the way, that teams won't, not just because of this, but because of the other locker room stuff that sort of comes with a Trevor Bauer.
He's bad for American baseball. He's great for Japanese baseball because he's a big revolution. No, I'm serious, because he's a big revolutionize the game guy, and like I do respect that element of his baseball career specifically. Again, don't respect the human being, but in terms of a baseball mind, he's right at the cross section between mechanical engineering and baseball, and he's at the forefront of that. So credit to him, and it's great for Japanese baseball.
That is Sam Yarnell. I am Jason Page. Sam, have yourself a great day. We'll see you all back here on Wednesday. See what happens in these baseball postseason games. I didn't get to Jimmy Butler's hair today on the show. I have to get to that. It's got like a Sam Yarnell thing going on.
All the small things.
We gotta go. I'll see you all later.